For centuries, women have been fighting for the rights men were unquestionably granted, like the right to vote, the right to an education, and the right of voluntary marriage. They sought to be independent, to be treated as equal economically, politically, and socially. However, society overlooked one key element towards equality: reproduction. In the past, women's roles in society were merely for reproduction purposes and childbearing. Decisions regarding family planning were not up to their control. Work in the fields required many helping hands, and even the idea of not having children was unheard of. However, by the mid-19th century, women began to seek more from their lives. Margaret Sanger, an activist advocating for birth control, recognized uncontrolled birth as an obstacle for women's equal opportunities in society. As a result, she sought an effective method to prevent unwanted pregnancies. After many decades of battling for reproductive rights, an innovation came along to prevent birth. The oral contraceptive pill was an important advancement towards women's social roles, breaking barriers regarding their reproductive rights and broadening the amount of opportunities they could undertake. Throughout history, legislation, religion, and social taboos posed barriers preventing women from being in control of their own reproduction. All around the world, government legislation discouraged the use of contraceptives. In the United States, the Comstock Laws of 1873 controlled information about sex and contraceptions, which the law considered to be obscene. The government viewed it as immoral for women to use contraceptives because they felt it went against nature. In the past, most government officials were male, and they used their political power to exert their control over women in every aspect of life, including sex. Law enforcement would also work to incriminate doctors and other people who were distributing information about female contraception. Those doctors were trying to educate whoever they could in order to inform the general public about methods to prevent reproduction. All these laws trying to control the spread of contraceptive information delayed the development and approval of the contraceptive pill. They made it more difficult for the public to access information about this revolutionary drug. Those who challenged the law were subject to arrest, detainment, and imprisonment. Religion was also used to justify the banning of the pill and other contraceptive information. The church discouraged all forms of birth control for women since it believed the people had to procreate. According to the Bible, God expressed to the people to be fruitful and multiply, implying that anyone who does not proliferate goes against God's will. This created a sense of fear among people since many devout Christians would not go against God's teaching. Furthermore, legislative and religious limitations made the use of contraceptives a social taboo. Society became accustomed to these restrictions, so talking about birth control was seen as immoral. People faced ridicule and prejudice if they spoke about it. Many thought that there were better ways to prevent pregnancy, like abstinence, while others felt that female contraceptives could harm women's health. Social taboos led to the spread of misinformation for a very long time, and it was not until the pill finally came to be that talking about contraception became normalized. As society became more educated about the subject, parents began to talk to their children about sexual education. In order to persuade the general public of the necessity to use contraceptives, Margaret Sanger published numerous educational newspapers. According to Sanger, the woman who, being instructed from early life in the facts of sexual physiology and sexual hygiene, is also trained in the exercise of freedom and self-responsibility, and able to choose and follow the path which seems to her right. She believed that women needed to do whatever was necessary to assert their right of voluntary motherhood, even if it meant breaking the law.
There was a certain satisfaction in doing something that was going to alleviate the sufferings of women in particular, and I was quite a feminist at the time.
Obviously.
And yes, and I naturally didn't want to see women take all the suffering of childbearing and of pregnancies.
Her writings included first-account stories of women in need of contraception because she felt that controlling family size was one way of ending the cycle of women's poverty. In 1921, Sanger founded the Birth Control League, which promoted the establishment of birth control clinics and encouraged females to take control of their reproduction. The League collected signatures to petition legislation that would allow doctors and nurses to distribute scientific information about birth control in the United States. They also distributed propaganda against laws that condemned birth control as vulgar. Sanger realized the significance that birth control had in the lives of women. She worked with scientists to bring a new form of contraception that put women in control of their reproduction. Eventually, her work with scientists led to the development of the pill, helping to break barriers against reproductive rights. The trials for the pill were very controversial. While the idea of a birth control pill was very popular among women, men were not totally convinced of it. Due to its controversy, no drug company, university, government agency, or Planned Parenthood clinic wanted to fund the experiments needed to bring the idea to life. For this reason, Sanger and her friend Catherine McCormick, a suffragist and philanthropist, funded its research. John Rock, a gynecologist, and Gregory Pincus, a biologist, were the lead scientists in the experiments. They considered Japan, Hawaii, India, Mexico, and New York to host the trials before finally deciding on Puerto Rico. The Caribbean island was ideal for these trials because of its lack of legislation against contraceptives and its stable population. Many of the women involved in the trial were either misinformed or not informed at all about the fact that they were being tested on.
Fue por el año 55. Vino una enfermera a mi casa que tenía un programa de, creo que era planificación familiar o algo así. Iba por los distintos apartamentos, enseñándonos ese tratamiento que había nuevo para evitar los hijos.
Ella pues se sentó y me explicó de las pastillas, del método, cómo.
¿Qué ella le dijo?
Pues que era un método bueno para evitar los hijos.
Las personas que tomaron la pastilla en ese año fueron las primeras mujeres en el mundo entero que tomaron las pastillas. ¿Usted sabía eso, Ana María?
No.
The test effects led to health issues among the subjects being tested, such as dizziness, nausea, and sometimes even heart attacks. These symptoms were overlooked, raising criticism about the test methods used, because it seemed as if the women involved were being taken advantage of. Despite all of this, the trials were successful. Rock and Pincus were able to develop what we know today as the pill. The pill became so widely used that the majority of the population started to view it in a more positive light, to the point of changing legislation in favor of it. The FDA ended up approving the pill in 1957. This meant that barriers with regards to women's reproductive rights were finally beginning to crumble. The development of the pill had a profound impact on reproductive rights, allowing women to take complete control of their sexuality and family planning. Because they could now have sex without the risk of pregnancy, the birth rate decreased, and with that, the population. This, however, was only one of the many long-lasting impacts the pill had to offer. For instance, the growing use of the pill led to more female participation in the male-dominated workforce. Women could stay in school for longer and therefore pursue more advanced degrees, which opened up more economic opportunities. Because the pill was seen as such a viable choice among women, it is not a surprise that it was incorporated into their everyday lives. Family planning became popular and was established as a cultural norm, granting women the ability to regulate their reproductive cycle. Moreover, the development of the pill brought several positive changes to the medical world. To this day, oral contraceptives are among the most prescribed drugs available, and unlike other forms of contraceptives, have not lost its popularity over time. Over 100 million women worldwide depend on the contraceptive pill to prevent unplanned pregnancies, but also for a series of other benefits. Among these are helping with acne, preventing ovarian cancer, regulating the menstrual cycle, and reducing premenstrual symptoms, all which are beneficial to women. Another impact of the contraceptive pill in the world of medicine is that it set the basis for new forms of birth control, which includes Seasonal, another oral pill taken every day for 3 months that reduces a woman's period to 4 times a year, among others. It is important to note that the main purpose of the pill is to prevent pregnancies, and like any drug, it could have negative consequences. The continuous intake of extra amounts of estrogen could harm some women. For example, for those who smoke or have high blood pressure, the pill could increase the risk of blood clotting and strokes. Before choosing a plan of contraceptives, women should consult their doctor in order to ensure a plan that is both safe and effective for them. It is evident that the development of the pill played a large role in shaping today's society. For the first time, women had the right to make their own choices regarding their sexuality, and did not have to rely on a man to do so. Nowadays, the pill is considered a normal method of birth control in the United States, for today's generations never had to experience any limitations to their reproductive rights. They do not realize the importance of the pill when it comes to women's choice. The efforts by women such as Margaret Sanger in the development of the birth control pill and the scientific innovations that stemmed from it were revolutionary to women's integration into society. Something so seemingly minuscule allowed women to pursue education and develop careers in a way they were not able to do before. Allowing women to vote and join the workforce was not enough to give them equal status in society. The pill's development allowed them to be in control of their own reproductive health, and in turn, control their futures, allowing women to break socio-economic barriers, opening up opportunities for them and future generations to come.